Hello, howdy. Thanks for joining me today as I continue part 2 of the series. In part 1, we talked about how to take notes in class, and I showed you how I use Cornell notes to implement the principle of active recall into my note-taking methods. If you haven't yet watched my video on active recall and taking notes in class, I would highly recommend to first go there, watch that video, and then come back. Okay, so now that all those people are gone, before we get into spaced repetition, I wanted to first say that we should always be reviewing our notes after class. If you use the Cornell note-taking method, you can test yourself using the questions you wrote on the side and see how well you understand and can retain this information. The huge problem with not doing this is that the next lesson will build off of the previous day's content. So if you're confused now, you'll be even more confused tomorrow. And that confusion will only compound over time. The way you can estimate if you've reviewed enough or not is by asking yourself, am I ready to take a pop quiz on this tomorrow if it comes about? You don't have to be able to get perfect on this, but you should be able to get around 80%. Now that we've talked about the importance of reviewing notes, let's go into spaced repetition. Spaced repetition revolves around the idea of a forgetting curve. And it basically shows that if you don't review your information at spaced intervals, you are going to forget. The average high school test is spaced to be every 3 weeks. So you only remember 35% of the information that you have learned. If you want to look at it from the exam's point of view, which is often months in advance, you hardly remember anything from what you learned in the first half of the semester. The forgetting curve shows that if you review this information at spaced intervals, you'll be able to retain this information for a lot longer of a period of time. Now is when we have to talk about Anki. Anki is a flashcard app that brilliantly combines active recall, spaced repetition, as well as allows you to review your notes of the day, all in one package. If you decided to start implementing Cornell notes into your note-taking methods, you'll find that Anki meshes perfectly with OneNote because those questions you have on the side can be the questions that you use for Anki. And at the same time, while you are creating these questions, creating these flashcards, you'll be automatically reviewing and synthesizing the information that you learned that day. And welcome to my Anki. I'll be showing you the basics of how you can create questions and how these questions will test you in flashcard format. So I'll go into my example deck here and I'll add a flashcard. Say that while taking Cornell notes in class, you wrote down that there are 205 bones in the human body. You can go to a basic code and ask that question on the front. And there are 205. So we can write that as the answer and we need to make sure it's in the correct deck. So this is in the example deck. And you can also add tags if you want. They help you to organize your codes, but I won't go too much in depth into that now. So I'll add this code at the bottom. If we go into our example deck and test ourselves, we can see the question that we just created. How many bones are there in the human body? Well, if I remember correctly, 205. What do you know? So as you can see at the bottom of the screen, there are 4 options. Again, hard, good, and easy. And based on the option you pick, Anki will repeat these codes at specific spaced intervals. And this allows you to fight against the forgetting code. Although basic codes are great, I want to encourage you all to use close style codes. And I think the effectiveness of these codes can be shown with the following example. We can use these ... buttons or Command Shift C as a keyboard shortcut to hide this text. And this is the question we created. Do you see how the 4 chambers of the heart are hidden? And that's the information that you need to solve. So we know it travels from the right atrium to the right ventricle to the left atrium to the left ventricle. And yes, that is the correct answer. It would be very difficult to craft a basic type question that would test this knowledge. Okay, it's test or exam time. And if you followed all the previous steps and implemented those principles and philosophies, you will be saving hours and hours and hours of time that you can cut from your studying and spend doing something else that you enjoy. You should already be familiar with all the content through Anki, because you should be reviewing your Anki codes every single day. And that is daunting, I know, but it's not as bad as you think. Let me explain. Your Anki codes should take on average 15 minutes a day, depending on what point of the semester you're in. Every day we have these small gaps of wasted time, whether that's while we're waiting for the bus, while we're on the bus ride to school, in line at the grocery, waiting for a laundry to finish, waiting for the teachers to start teaching. We can use these small gaps of time instead of going on our phone to just do our Anki codes. I wanted to make the point that each Anki code should only take 5 seconds, and you will get faster over time. But if you make these lengthy codes, try and break them down into smaller codes, so each code takes less time. If you really don't want to use those gaps of time to review your Anki codes, you can always review all your codes at the beginning of the day. So when you test yourselves using your Cornell Notes questions, you can blow by those questions. Question, answer, very quick. So quizzes should take around half an hour, tests should take around 1 hour, and exams around 5 hours. But of course, this is a big give or take. Depends on what course you have. Organic chemistry, probably a lot longer than something like data management. At the same time, you'll get higher marks on tests because you've successfully fended off the forgetting curve. Why is spaced repetition a must? Based on the forgetting curve, you'll forget almost everything that you learned throughout the course. It takes far longer to basically be relearning all your content than to simply review it. Also, if you're someone who tends to put off your studying until the last 1 or 2 weeks, you'll be cramming a lot of information within such a short time interval. And this is less effective to actually remember the content and apply it on those more tough thinking style questions. So that pretty much wraps up the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. It's always great having you join me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Camera battery as well.